to Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions, the podcast where we dive deep into our faith on this incredible journey of balancing a life dedicated to healing, nurturing, and giving back. I'm Johanna, your host, and each time we meet, we'll explore the stories of remarkable individuals who are PAs, doctors, and professionals, and mission-driven changemakers, from the halls of our hospitals to the hearts of our homes, and into the communities we serve. Join us as we uncover the challenges, triumphs, and everything in between through the lens of our shared faith in Christ. Whether you're a healthcare professional, a parent, or someone passionate about making a difference for God's glory, this podcast is for you. So grab a cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and get ready to be inspired by real-life stories of resilience, compassion, and dedication, all rooted in faith. Hey, all, and friends, I'm so happy to have this conversation with a good friend of mine, Jessee Bustinza. She is a doctor, pediatrician, and wife and mother to 3 beautiful girls. She's worked as a missionary doctor with her husband, and we actually met at Oral Roberts University about, maybe 22, 23 years ago, and she was a nursing student at the time. Coincidentally, we both got placed on a mission team to Nigeria for 1 month. It was full of great memories. That summer we had so much fun. On campus, we were doing extra classes, I think. I can't really remember exactly, but...
We were really displaced college students. I think that's what was going on.
Yeah. And we even dressed up in 1980s exercise clothes and walked to Walmart for groceries once. And we do still have the pictures of that. And we did such random things. I love all the memories we have. And, there's a little backstory that I'm trying to teach my daughter how to crochet. Although she's telling me it's teamwork where I'm actually doing all the stuff and she's watching. That's her way of teamwork. and we got a little kit to make a little wiener dog and little stuffed animals. And back in college, I had crocheted for my first time and made a little scarf with a stuffed...
Johanna, you won't believe this, but I'm not kidding, literally was cleaning the mess under my couch yesterday, and I found that same weenie dog with the crocheted scarf, a 20-year-old weenie dog.
Oh, my goodness.
It lives on in our home. Thank you.
That's so amazing. It was such a fun memory, and we've just been such... good friends, even though we've lived apart for all these years. And, that connection at ORU is just so special. And she's been such an encouragement to me over the last few years and a blessing to so many people. And so I just am so excited for the conversation that you all get to listen to today. Now, Jessee she also, her husband also went to ORU and was also a biomedical engineering major at the time, totally different to now he's a general surgeon. And so it's quite amazing what they have accomplished together as husband and wife and family with their 3 daughters. And, just tell us a little bit more about yourself and what's been happening in the last few years.
Yeah, thank you, Johanna. Thanks for that warm welcome. And I got to say, I was just pumped to be invited to speak with you this morning and join this community. And I'm really excited, as you know, about the vision behind this podcast, Missions, Motherhood, and Medicine.
Yes.
Because I think that unites so many people that our callings or vocations may delve into those areas. And there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to tease into. And so I'm just so thankful to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. I think we had talked about it last year too, before when the little idea was stirring in my heart. And so, because you're a combination of all of it together as well. And so, Jessee, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm currently based in Florida. But I grew up in the jungles of Mexico and in Southern Peru as a missionary kid, lived there for about 8 years. And a fun fact about my husband and I is that we met at the foot of a Peruvian volcano at the ages of 3 and 5 years old. And it's kind of funny because he basically robbed the cradle. And yeah, I'm okay with that. He's wonderful.
3 and 5.
We have been married. Yeah. Don't get any ideas, girls. Okay?
Exactly.
But we've been married for 18 years, and I'm so grateful for him as my teammate in life and in this journey together. More about me is I felt a calling in my teen years into medical missions and initially went into nursing, like you mentioned. I worked as a pediatric ICU nurse for 3 years. And then God just started putting on my heart the desire to get more practical skills for missions. So I remember looking at various avenues, but ultimately he opened doors into medical school. And I completed my training as a pediatrician in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In 2018, we launched to the mission field in northern Mexico through the Samaritan's post-residency program, and later through Christian Health Service Corps. And I had the most wonderful experience with them. If anybody ever wants more info about getting connected, love to share that with you. We served there for 3 years. I'll share more about those details later. But the Lord called us back to the States to really invest in discipling our young girls in 2021. And so we have Lucy, who's 6, Caroline, who's 4, and Emily Joy, who just turned 3. And currently in this season, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I spend a lot of hours in a car pickup line. So that's a new reality. But God is also giving me opportunities to share through medical education. I give a lot of lectures on global health. Also missionary counseling. I'm volunteering with Christian Medical and Dental Association to provide some mental health support for current missionaries overseas. And that has been so wonderful for me as I firsthand experienced burnout and the challenge of living in a resource limited setting and facing overwhelming need and death in other countries. And so it's just a blessing to connect with and listen to people that are walking through that, and hopefully be an encouragement to them. Let's see. I also just love, in my free time, I love to paint. I love party planning. And
you're very creative.
Oh man. I just recently got a Cricut machine and my life will never be the same. So it's a good life right now. And I'm just thankful for this season.
And, being a medical missionary, and then you mentioned, the burnout you face and limited resources and the feelings of maybe helplessness that you have as a medical missionary, but you also grew up overseas as a missionary kid. How did that impact your life and your perspective, your family? Was there similarities, or how did, what were the differences? How did that all impact you?
Yeah, I think, that was a real gift to me to be raised overseas. And even though we walked through really difficult things overseas, or maybe in multiple seasons of transition, I don't think I would be the person I am today unless God had allowed me to walk through those challenges. And I'm so grateful that my parents, like your parents, I know, laid an example of pouring their lives out to serve the poorest of the poor. And I think that really, as a child, that really impacted my heart. And I remember just thinking, I want to help people too. And I wasn't sure exactly how that would take form, but it did impact me significantly. And so I think the interesting thought also is, as we grow into adult third culture kids, and maybe we're even involved in missions secondarily now, or bringing our young children, how does that play out? Or we're re-entering back into our passport culture now, and how do we deal with that? And something kind of interesting that I've noticed in the past couple of years is this discomfort I have with being planted somewhere. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but just to explain, like, I think we're really good at being like kind of cultural chameleons as TCKs, whether that's, military background or missionary. We're really good at being flexible, adapting.
Yeah.
And we might even find it like thrilling or exciting and comfortable to like always be moving. And I have just found that now in my midlife adult TCK, it's kind of being settled and adapted is a bit of an uncharted territory for me. And it's a bit uncomfortable sometimes. I don't know if you can relate to that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I definitely can relate to that. And I think like Paul and I both grew up in similar background, as you're talking about, overseas, different countries, constantly moving, constantly changing. And we were just saying that this place where we are right now is like the longest we've been in our whole entire lives ever, and that's just like 4 years, So, like,
that is so funny.
Because we're so used to moving, or even at least moving a different house or something,
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's so true. It was so funny because the other day we were driving home from church and I saw this billboard advertising mercy ships. And I said, Willie, I had a plan. In 24 hours, I'd figured it out. We were going to sell our house, sign up. We're going to live family of 5 in a 200 square foot cruise ship room for 2 years. And I pitched it to him. He's like, no, we're not going to do that, And so, but it is something I continue to struggle with.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. It's such a huge thing, but in a way, stability is something I have also craved in a way, given all the moving and adapting and changing. And so it's kind of like a tug of war.
That's so good. I think, it is the blessing of security and stability when we have been through so much transition. We really feel that deep, right?
Yeah.
Or having a home base, being known and being a part of a community. And so, and teaching our kids to, that they can embrace and invest in the community where they are,
Exactly. And so when you have been so, blessed, of course, to be able to live out those service values and perspectives as a child, and then grow up to also impact so many, like finding a purpose, like, was that one of the hardest things that you had to kind of find in life?
Absolutely.
I remember in college, it was such a huge thing. Find your purpose. It's like, because you're wanting to find out what you want to do, what was God's call on your life. And I was always, God, help me fulfill your purpose for my life. But what is it? How do we follow God's purpose in and for our lives?
Yeah, that's such an important question. And I think it weighs heavy on Christians, and especially Christians who may have grown up in our context. We feel even maybe a greater responsibility, right? To care for the needy and to extend our hearts for those who don't have what they need and are gifting. So I'll be honest, I think that can become a burden and a very weighty question. And I certainly felt that in college. I remember that burning desire just to find my purpose, and I think sometimes, God will use earth-shaking events to show us a glimpse of that. I think also he uses a series of just nudges in our lives, whether that's words from teachers or friends or coaches. And I think as I'm getting older, is what I'm learning is, maybe instead of focusing on pursuing a specific vocation or a purpose, which we know is likely to change, right?
Yeah.
Because it has for me, we should really focus on following a person, and we know is Jesus, and that's just hard. It's hard to live in uncertainty and that struggle of identity. It's just hard to trust, isn't it? And I remember a quote that you shared actually on social media several years ago that I wrote down because I loved it, by Brennan Manning. that instead of pursuing this clarity of purpose,
Yeah.
because we're craving, right, that security of identity and purpose, that instead we should learn to follow Jesus wherever that path leads. And his quote goes in his book, Ruthless Trust, Manning says, craving clarity, we attempt to eliminate the risk of trusting God. Fear of the unknown path stretching ahead of us destroys childlike trust in the Father's active goodness and unrestricted love.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It's so true. Because when we live by faith, we're totally 100% trusting in the Lord. We're trusting in his provision, his grace, and we're not giving into our own strengths, our own, fallible lives that, can fail in health or wealth or any number of things. Nothing is certain when we think of our own human limited options, But faith and trust and hope in the Lord is all we can 100% rely on. And it's never an easy path. It's not something that's going to be like, oh, it's super easy. It's just going to be just walking through dandelions, but
Right.
And that it still has, as the uncertainty, but that's the beauty of it is we just like like he's saying, a child trusting in their mom and dad to take care of them. They have like full dependence on us as kids. And yet they trust us totally 100%, knowing that we have the best for them and that we want them to succeed. We want them to have such a beautiful life, just like our Heavenly Father does, right? For us.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so
good. Speaking of purpose, it's, what I think helped me as a 20-year-old was also hearing this one lady who she was speaking about her own experience, and she was saying how, she studied chemistry, then she went on to work in industry, then she did this other job, then she found fulfillment and calling in helping women who were in domestic violence situations. And I can't remember exactly what her ministry was called, but she had started a ministry for that. And but she had said in the end, she's like, although I started with one vision and one thing, I ended up finding a purpose and calling in the end. And every experience and every journey along the way helped me get to where I am today. And so that's so awesome. Key to always reminding ourselves in life too, is that, it's never about the end result, it's the journey and every experience. Right. And as you said yourself, like, growing up and overseas and all the experiences, the hardships, everything you faced in your families, seeing all the poverty around, it has shaped who you are today, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And so we have to be willing to follow Jesus. Even if the path goes off road to unexpected destinations, we have to trust that he's walking ahead. Yeah. And sometimes it's in the dark. Sometimes it's with uncertainty, often with uncertainty. But we have to trust that he will take care of us. He ultimately, he is our security. He's our safety. He is our, we are like known and seen and loved by him. And so we can trust where he's going and follow that,
Exactly. And, talking about like, purpose and everything, how did you like make that decision to move to Mexico? And how did that season of life impact you and your family?
Wow. Yeah. That was one of the easiest decisions I've ever made, I've got to say, because we were so excited to launch to the mission field. I think probably for about 15 years, that had been my burning desire to serve with Samaritan's Purse. And it was such a blessing to have those years. I'm so thankful that God allowed that in our lives. We were in a remote region. It was a canyon that was located about 10 hours south of the border by car, but just a really difficult place to work as it was very isolated and primarily controlled by the drug cartel. And so there was quite a bit of violence that would occur in the community, thankfully never against our hospital or the missionaries, but also what really was heartbreaking was the degree of need. And so something that was a surprise to me was the severity of childhood malnutrition that I encountered, kwashiorkor, marasmus, and it really put me out of my comfort zone, to be honest. Up to 50% of Tarahumara children may die by age 5 due to starvation and infectious disease. And I saw that. I saw that on a daily basis. And some of those heartbreaking moments that I walked through was losing these precious kids. But they were also some of the most powerful and life-changing for me. And just really getting to see the presence of Jesus with me, being that second hand on the patient, just knowing he was there.
Yeah.
And really offering in real time, as people are grieving the loss of a loved one, the hope that they could experience. And when you're serving in a place where people don't have anything, and you know also that you're a finite missionary, you know, your medical facility has limited resources, your own capacity is limited. We're really able to shine the spotlight on the eternal hope of heaven, and also offering that to people and knowing that even in the midst of pain and suffering and death, they could have a hope of heaven. And I don't think that changes no matter what corner of the world you live in, our need for that eternal hope. So that was very impacting for me. And I was so grateful. You know, it's funny, even some of the most hardest experiences, the ones that we would say, I don't even know if I could walk through that again, they were the most grateful for, because God didn't waste any tear or any painful experience. And he's using it for good. You know, he brought so many families to knowledge of the Lord, even through those losses, and in my own heart, a lot of redemption. So it was a beautiful time. And I'll also add that my children were really witness to that. And their hearts have been touched, even at a young age. You know, it was funny. We were driving to school this morning here in Florida, and my oldest two were in the back of our Honda Odyssey. And I overheard a conversation, and they were saying, Mom, we're going to, actually, this is what happened. They were not wanting to eat their bagel for breakfast. And I said, girls, you know, Tarahumara kids, they don't have food to eat. You know, we got to be thankful for this bagel. And they started conspiring in the back seat. They said, Mom, we're going to build a hotel for the Tarahumara, and we're going to be the chefs, and we're going to prepare meals for them. And that was really sweet. So those seeds that are planted, even in tears, like, I think they're still bearing fruit. And so I'm thankful. And we do take our kids back to the mission field every year. And that's just a really sweet time to see them get involved.
Yeah, for sure. You never know exactly what the little ones are picking up, but then you hear those conversations and you see that heart and that how their minds are working and understanding things far beyond than what we imagine, right? And that's so beautiful.
That's right.
But yeah, I can't imagine, you know, because you as a pediatrician, you're wanting to, you know, save lives. You want to help these children. And then you are also a mother at the time. And so you know the pain of a mother losing a child. And I can't imagine just how difficult that must have been to go through and see. But I love how you're seeing the beauty of the gospel of Christ and the hope of an eternal heaven that we can hold on to, and the people can hold on to that hope as well. And I know we're going a little bit back to what you spoke about earlier when you were discussing how, now those experiences, you're actually helping counsel others who are getting burned out on the field, facing these similar kinds of, experiences and the pain, the loss, the grief. And how do you feel that has felt for you to be able to give back in that way? Because you're not on the actual field anymore.
Yeah. I'm just so grateful that God allowed that to be part of my story, so I could share with others who are passing through those same situations. And it has just been wonderful. In fact, I have a really close-knit group of women that we were in a counseling group together, and then we still meet and celebrate each other's birthdays remotely. And it is just neat. Mental health is just so important, and learning to rest in God, have Sabbath on the field, learning to release those things to God and to receive from God. Also, the hard things we go through. It's just something that is so valuable to me. So I hope I can continue to do that. I absolutely love it. So.
Yeah, because even just in medicine in general, because you see such heavy things in medicine, wherever you are, honestly, because we see death and we see such difficulty, such, severity of illness all the time, right? And I think those same things and so those same tenets can apply to medical practitioners in general, is being able to have that rest, that mental rest, and recharge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you, so now you're shifting, and now you said you're a stay-at-home mom as well, but how did the purpose, of desiring to serve and give back, and, from medical missionaries to, physicians, and how did all of those things change when you became a mother, or did they change?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it took me a couple of years to realize what was going on. And I think that might be true for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Because, man, we are full force ahead. We've invested years in medical training. And a lot of us are also having young children in that same season. And so it becomes an automatic struggle, I think, value and where we want to invest our heart and our attention. And that's really hard. And so, like I mentioned, I was pretty busy in Mexico. We had quite a bit of trauma coming in. I was the only pediatrician in the region. So every night I would go to bed thinking, what pants am I wearing? Because I might have to jump up and just go. And my husband would intubate and I would run the codes, and we would work as a team. And my parents were missionaries. They're with us. Thank God we had that village, and they would come and sit on our couch at 2 a.m. while we went and resuscitated a child. But sometimes I didn't have any support. And I remember one time I was watching my 4-month-old at home, and I got a knock on the door. There was an unconscious child in the ER. I didn't have anywhere to put her, so I took her with me, and there was no clean surface to lay her on in the ER. And so I remember holding her. She was sleeping on my shoulder, and asking the nurse to put the stethoscope in my ears, leaning over and examining this precious patient on the table. And I saw myself later in that situation, and I thought, you know what? That's not okay. That wasn't okay for me. And it was like, okay, I need to think about this. And so what are the parameters I need to draw in my life so I can show up with my heart, my whole heart, for my family? And where can I show up for my patients? And that wasn't easy. I think it is really hard to go, 100 miles an hour in an ER setting, and then turn around and drive or walk home and go 2 miles an hour playing Legos with your toddler who really needs you to. And that's really important too. And all I can say is I think it was a process where God helped me to realize that this desire to be a mom and nurture my own children that he had given me, it wasn't just from me, it was like from him. And so that was like valid and worthwhile to say, you know what, this is a season where I'm going to prioritize. For me, it was, I'm going to prioritize my young kids. And I remember reading this quote from C.S. Lewis that says, it says, children are not a distraction from more important work. They are the most important work. And so that is just super hard, I think, to balance in real life sometimes. But ultimately, that led to me being stay at home now, and have zero regrets. It's just a good season for me. I'm still able to use my giftings in a different way, but I'm able to also just be there for my kids. I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, because as mothers, it's always a struggle, especially when you grow up with that feeling of responsibility to want to serve and want to help and want to do. But as a mother, you do have your children that need you, and taking that time, and it's not the same for everybody, but however we can, we fit it in. We have we try to prioritize as best as we can. And so,
right. And it'll cost us something, probably,
for
right?
sure.
To fight toward what we value most, and it is a struggle for moms, I think. So.
Yeah. And I think that's where that sacrifice, you sacrifice for what's most important to you, right? And so that's the most important thing. But and so do you feel that medicine or motherhood is always a choice we have to make?
That's the question. I mean, personally, I don't think so. I think that if we're open to following the Lord, and even if our life looks a little different than our colleagues or different than we had anticipated, I think he'll invite us to do things, to use our skills, even as stay-at-home moms, or vice versa. If we're working full time, and he'll give us opportunity, because he's good. I think that we have to trust him in those uncomfortable seasons with that. And I think it may come down to how we view our sense of identity as well. Something I had to learn coming off the mission field, because this was like what I thought I wanted to do for my whole life, right? I learned that the truth is God doesn't need me to be a missionary pediatrician. And he loves me, not because of what I do for him. I had to let that sink in.
Yeah.
He loves me because I'm his daughter, Jessee. And so really resting in that and accepting that truth has really freed me to be home with my kids in this season, or has also freed me to branch out in new career paths that may seem risky, knowing that it's a journey and I'm following him. And my identity is really not on a particular vocation at the moment. It's really just is his daughter. So
that is very, very important, because we can lose ourselves completely when we think of ourselves by what we do. And, the gospel of Christ, the gospel of Jesus, is not about what we do. It's not work-based. It's not about our actions. It's not how good we are and how well we behave or anything like that. It's all just by the grace and mercy of God that we can have a relationship with Christ Jesus. And out of that grace and mercy that we receive, we love and put our whole faith and hope in him. That desire to love Jesus brings forth everything else in our life, right? And that is so important for us as like Christian professionals to always realize that it's not about what we do. It's not about our actions. It's all about Jesus, and by his grace, everything is, and goes forth and every, purpose and accomplishment in our life is by God's grace and mercy.
That's so good. That's such a good perspective. I remember my mom telling us when we were little, when we would go to the library, her wording was really key. She'd say, kids, she wouldn't say you have to go to the library. It was like, you get to go to the library. And I think medicine for me is that way. I get to do medicine, right? It is a gift. 80% of what I may do in a given day in ministry may have nothing to do with putting a Band-Aid on someone. And that's okay. God will use my giftings in my life however he wants for his glory. So that's okay.
Yeah. That's so true. And I love that we talked about that, because that's just so important, because these days, everything is about, who you are, what you're doing, your identity is always focused on the self, right? And everything that's happening because of that. But it is, when we really come down to it, is Christians, it's not really about us or what we're doing or what anything about us. It's all about Jesus in the end, and by his grace that anything else is accomplished. And talking about that, like, how do we cope with challenges that these seasons of transitions bring?
Yeah. I think that's such a good question. And I like that we're talking about seasons of change, because I think this Sunday is the official first day of fall. So I'm excited about that. It is about 130 degrees out here in Florida. How are you guys in Oklahoma? Is it cooling down?
It's not cooling down yet.
Oh my gosh. I know, these like boiling pumpkin beverages. I'm like, I can't drink this right now.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like, wow, it's definitely doesn't feel like fall yet.
Yeah. So, but I like that we're talking about transition and change, because I think this is going to impact all of us. If it isn't right now, it will soon, right? If we're humans. And I feel like our family's just been through so much transition in the last 10 years. I know you guys have too, with everything you've been through, and even just parenting and health things and career things. And I think that it's a challenge to cope and to keep our eyes on Jesus, keep the spotlight on him when we feel unstable or insecure in seasons of change. And being in the missionary world, I've, had friends, and even myself, I've been through experiences where we had to move overseas in 24 hours for a health reason, or others who had to leave overnight because of the pandemic, or their child had a life-threatening health issue, and their entire life is upside down. And that's very disorienting. And I think one of the things that's helped me is realizing that as a TCK and ex-missionary kid, I do have a sensitivity, or maybe even a pain point of craving stability and security. Whether that be vocational, financial, even just having a home, because I have moved a lot, even having friends. And sometimes I think that has made me want to cope by trying to control the situation, or maybe overperform, overproduce, or maybe trying to just figure out what God is going to do next for me. But I have also learned in this season of a little more rest in my life, that the truth is that even though I feel insecure, the truth is that God says that I have everything I need in him, and I can rest in that and release those anxieties to him in transition. And that's a constant daily thing, I think, to release your fears to God of the future, your, for your loved ones, for their health, for all those things. But that's part of following Jesus, is accepting that, sometimes I think we think about releasing things to God. And I used to do that in Mexico when I would have a child die in the ER. I learned to go home in the middle of the night when my thoughts were racing, and I was thinking I was shining maybe the spotlight on my own inadequacies or insecurities, or replaying, did we do enough? And the Lord just taught me to actually lift up my hands and release that child back to him. And that was like tremendously important for me. But something I've also learned is when we release things to God, we then need to pause and like hear what he wants us to receive from him, because I think that's part of the key in this life of faith is letting go of some of those pains, and putting those pains in his care, I guess I should say, but also saying, God, how do you see this time of my life? And I think that has given me a lot of courage and reassurance to know I'm with you. You have what you need in me, and I am your security.
Yeah. Letting go is so important because I was actually just thinking about this past week, how, fear and anxiety and, those types of things can just take such hold of people. Like, because I've been seeing that on social media and the, world in general. It's just so full of it. And everyone's, having so much fear of the future, anxieties over everything. And the ability to let go and let God, to use this, cliche phrase, but to realize that we have a Heavenly Father who loves us and wants to take care of us. And this world is temporary. Everything is, not forever. And there'll always be difficulties and challenges. You have, faced that in your own life. And we also have, but it's all about trusting in him, trusting that we will have an eternal hope and future, right? It's because, I'm just thinking of, because you mentioned the health, having my husband go through cancer and, almost dying. And, it was always, just letting God have his way and bring peace into our lives no matter what is going on in our circumstances.
That's right. That's so true.
And it's not easy to do that because we want to have control. We want to, release it, at least in word, but still kind of have our hands in the pot. Right.
Right. Exactly.
And so it's like hard to do that, but sometimes it's just, you just have to realize that nothing is very stable in life, because we're talking about, being third culture kids.
Yeah, it's so true.
And, we crave that stability, but nothing really is very stable in this life.
No matter how much, Allstate insurance we invest in.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or we try to create a false sense of security on earth. The truth is, like, we're in God's hands. That's the safest place to be. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and that's, I think, even, as you were saying with seasons of transitions, that's all we can do is trust God and see how things work. But it kind of brings to mind, going back to that other conversation, is like, but every experience we have in this journey in life will have a purpose and an outcome that will help others and be able to let our lives be a service for the Lord, And so that's the beautiful part of it. But
that's right.
What have you learned in your seasons of transitions?
Oh man, I feel like, Johanna, I'm just on the cusp, and God is teaching me so many things, but I'm actually learning a lot, specifically actually on kind of the way we view our life story. I've been really interested in this lately and just curious about what kind of mindset I'm bringing to looking at my life, like you were talking about journey. And I'm actually doing this course called Rebuild by a lady named Shauna Ingram, just who is a trauma-informed counselor who works with missionaries re-entering after a period of service overseas. And one of the things she refers to is the mindset, whether it's a single path or lifespan mindset, how we view our stories in our lives and in regard to transition. So an example of this, like a single path mindset, this is kind of how we talk to our kids. Like the question might be like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or what are your passions? Or maybe this is what you and I were struggling with in college. And so that narrative that kind of goes with that mindset would be, okay, so I grew up with a passion as Jessee and a clear call to be a missionary pediatrician in Latin America. So that's what I did. I moved there with my family, et cetera, et cetera. And I served and I fulfilled that single calling that I felt. And so Shauna Ingram then goes on to explain the lifespan mindset. And it's looking at your whole life journey and recognizing, like you were sharing earlier about that other woman, that uncertainties are a normal part of a person's journey. And so that narrative for lifespan path might be like, okay, so Jessee knew from an early age she wanted to help people by watching her parents help people. She wasn't sure how that would connect specifically to a career. She journeyed through different careers, like a nurse. I was a pediatrician, an educator. Now I'm a mental health advocate and a stay-at-home mom and a nonprofit worker, et cetera. And I think both mindsets can be like fulfilling, and both can be filled with uncertainty, and that's okay. And what I really appreciate about this conversation and thinking about these things is it gives us permission, I think, especially as moms who are professionals, to try something new in the next season. And just to ask, okay, right now I am a stay-at-home mom of 3 young kids. And I'm also a pediatrician or a PA or a nurse or an allied health professional. So in that light, God, you've planted me in X location in corner of the planet right now. What gifts have you put in me that I can bring to the world and that I can show up with, and in this season. And so I think that has been an interesting thought process for me in the past couple of years is viewing transition as that life journey with multiple facets. And also the last thing I'll say is I think we were talking about our identity linked to vocation or even calling in a spiritual sense as I'm called to the mission field. But I think viewing our lives as a journey with multiple seasons kind of releases us from that sense of burden that if our vocation changes, then our identity changes and our calling changes. It's not really true. Our calling is just to follow Jesus, right? So I think that's been really freeing and interesting for me too.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I think like that's like the that really, is the culmination of this whole conversation, is realizing that as mothers or, medical professionals or whoever and whatever we are, it's always a journey. It's always something new, and we can learn something in every single season of our life. And even though we're moms, that's every age group that we learn something new, and that whole time frame is going to change, and something else is going to come along where we'll have to learn something different or change the way we do things. And we just enjoy each season, enjoy each learning experience. And when we, as you said, when we think of our calling as just to follow Jesus in our lives, then everything else is secondary, and everything else just falls into place too when we focus on Jesus first and foremost, right?
That's so good.
And so thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Jessee, for this conversation. I really hope that this will encourage so many people out there, and that everyone can find that spark of hope in each season of their life. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to have you listen to us again soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Johanna.
Thank you, Jessee. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions. We hope you found inspiration, insight, and a sense of connection in the stories we shared today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and follow us, leave a review. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. Follow us on Instagram and all the socials. We'd love for you to join a community of like-minded individuals passionate about making a difference through medicine, motherhood, and mission work. Remember, whether you're balancing the demands of a medical career, navigating the joys and challenges of parenthood, or dedicating yourself to a cause greater than yourself, you're not alone. We're here to support you, celebrate, and inspire one another on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep healing, keep nurturing, and keep sparking hope. This is Johanna signing off from Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions.